Blog Talk Radio.
Stevie B's Media Production is a part of the Shellcaster Network.
The proclamation of the gospel of Jesus Christ by members of the Churches of Christ. With your host, Stevie R. Butler. You're listening to What a Word from the Lord radio show.
You are my protector, and you are my provider, and my deliverer. There's no other help I know. You are my protector, and you are my provider, and my deliverer. There's no other help I know. I really love the Lord. I really love the Lord. You don't know what He's done for me. Gave me the victory. I love Him. I love Him. And I really love the Lord. Oh, I really love the Lord. Really love the Lord. I really love the Lord. He saved my soul from sin. Loved me again and again. I love Him. I love Him. I really love the Lord. And I know how sweet He's been. My deliverer, no other help I know. He's such a loyal friend. On the cross, He bled and died, and now in Him I abide. I love Him, yes I love Him, and I really love the Lord. You don't know what He's done for me. Gave me the victory. I love Him. I love Him. I really love the Lord. You don't know what He's done for me. Gave me the victory. I love Him. I love Him. I really love the Lord. You don't know what He's done for me. When I think about His matchless grace, gave me the victory. I love Him. I love Him. I really love the Lord.
You're listening to What a Word from the Lord radio show.
Good evening, wherever you are in the world listening to this radio broadcast. Stevie B's Media Production presents What a Word from the Lord radio show. I'm your host, Stevie R. Butler, and this radio show is being broadcast from Stevie B Media Production at the Carolina studio in the great state of North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just grateful for the privilege to bring you a program where we as Christians and members of the Churches of Christ can share our faith and preach and teach the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ on a weekly basis. If you'd like to contact us while we're on the air this evening, just give us a call to the live show at 713-955-0508, or you can go to the Blog Talk Radio website and listen to this show live tonight. We're on page 2 of that website. There are over 1,700 live shows on that website at this hour, and you will find this show on page 2. Just look for episode 251, and of course my nice picture that you'll see there on the website. Also, if you have any questions or comments for any of my co-hosts or guests on this broadcast, you can send your emails to butlersteve1009@yahoo.com, or you can just call Stevie B Media Production at the Carolina studio at 910-491-6405. Now, again, this program is brought to you by members of the Churches of Christ, and if you need any assistance in locating a congregation in your area, please feel free to contact us. Now, folks, on tonight, we have a special edition. We have the Kelli Fletcher Show. Kelli serves with the Livingstone Church of Christ there in Indianapolis, Indiana, and she just has a great show. We always enjoy what Kelli is doing under the Stevie B's Media Production here. Kelli, take it away. Enjoy the show.
This is Terry Jackson, and you're listening to A Talk with My Sisters on What a Word from the Lord radio show. Hello, and welcome everyone in our audience. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Kelli, and I am your co-host for this evening. You are listening to the Kelli Fletcher Show on Stevie B Media Productions, What a Word from the Lord radio show. If you have any questions for our guests during tonight's show, please send me an IM on Facebook or send an email to butlersteve1009@yahoo.com, and we'll be sure to get that information or that question or concern over to our guests. So for tonight's topic, we will be talking about drug abuse and its impact on families. And we know that the problem of substance abuse affects people from all walks of life. This includes parents, children, spouses, and partners living in otherwise normal homes. Substance abuse is not isolated to one race, one gender, or one age group. So tonight, my special guest will talk to us about how drug abuse impacts families. And my prayer is the information shared tonight will help those who might be abusing drugs or help guide their loved ones on how they can do or what they can do to help. So please help me welcome George Wooten. Hi, George. Can you please share a little bit about yourself and your background before we get started?
Yes, I'm George Wooten, and in recovery myself. So I'm recovering from drug addiction. I've been clean for over 22 years. I'm a member of the Church of Christ. I was born in Church of Christ and raised knowing the truth. However, like the prodigal son, I wandered away. And I've come back and do God's work by helping others who have come the same way.
Amen. Amen. Thank the Lord. So can you, to start us out, can you tell us what is drug abuse?
Drug abuse happens when drugs, including alcohol, illicit drugs, or psychoactive substances are misused or to get high on or inflict self-harm. There's also the substance use disorder, since people who use drugs experiment significantly altering their thinking, behavior, and body functions.
Okay. So, and I'm sure there's a difference between drug abuse and drug addiction. What is that difference?
It is. Drug addiction is a disease that alters a person's brain and behavior where they are unable to stop using illegal or legal drug substances. Someone Struggle with addiction can continue using the drug despite being aware of negative consequences. A person can be addicted to various substances such as cocaine, heroin, prescription pills, and hallucinogens. Marijuana, alcohol, and nicotine are also considered drugs. For some drugs, addiction begins with the recreational use and the social situation and progresses to frequent use. For others, it may start with taking prescription medication to overcome certain health conditions. How soon a person develops addiction depends on the drug. Some substances with a higher potency, such as opioid painkillers, can lead to addiction faster than others.
Okay, so, and I'm guessing, so the abuse can turn into addiction. Is it something that happens over time, or is it something that can happen immediately?
With different types of drugs, some of the stronger drugs, it can happen more quickly. They call certain drugs gateway drugs. They call marijuana that for years. But the effects of all of the drugs, including alcohol, start to happen to our bodies immediately. That may not become, a person may not become aware of that until they start getting into trouble.
Gotcha. Okay. You had mentioned some the common drugs that people use. So what are some factors that may, influence someone to use drugs?
That can be a lot of different things. A lot of times an addict will have, I'll call them all addicts because when it comes down to it, the different things that a person will actually start using will usually be about some impact from the earlier life, traumas, drama, childhood rearing that has been affected negatively on the child. And a lot of times working with addicts today, they go back years and years sometimes to instances that happened where they were mistreated or abused sexually, mentally, physically. And because of that hurt, that harm, they will try to medicate or make themselves feel better. So it's an imbalance in the brain that is dictated by thoughts and feelings and shame and guilt, all kind of different things.
Okay. So, and you had mentioned like earlier childhood, and since we know that drug abuse is not just isolated to a parent or a child, or I guess a child or a sibling. When parents, for example, abuse alcohol or drugs, how does this impact the child? How would it affect the parenting and then the child's development?
Well, number one, we know that we're all creatures of habit. And the habits that we see are normal are the things that we learn from early childhood a lot of times. Parents can be affected in ways that because of their own earlier childhood drama, the different things that have happened may be present trauma and drama that are happening in their lives. They can't deal with, they don't like dealing with. I kind of think back to even postpartum depression for a mother. Those kind of things left untreated can spiral out of control. That, like I said, rape, incest, all those kind of things, whether they've been abused in other ways, beaten, left actually, children can be left alone, not reared, left to latchkey kids, I guess you could call it. And what happens is things happen when that goes on because predators are in our society and in our lives. Sometimes they're in our families. And kind of things, again, when a parent's not there, I go and speak in the jails and different things like that. When you can't raise your children if you're not there. They neglect, they call children family services and things like that. And when those things happen, other traumas and dramas can actually go on, and a person tries to get away from that. So if the parent starts to drink, starts to do drugs, they neglect the child. The rearing kind of goes away, and the child ends up being the adult way too early. So a lot of different things will affect both the parent and the child.
Okay. So I know that drug abuse is immediate family, but what about, can it impact, say, like extended family? Say like your aunts and your uncles, cousins, and how does it affect the community?
As a whole, it affects the community. A lot of times things will happen. Again, I'll go back to the traumas and dramas that happens in family sometimes, whether it be the father beating the mother beating the father, they're both beating the children. And a lot of times families will try to keep that secret. They don't want everybody to know. I've heard over the years, what happens in this house stays in this house. Where if there's something wrong that's happening, it should not stay in this house, and neither should the child. Sometimes either one of the adults. Protection is one of the things that God does for us. And a lot of times if a parent or a guardian is not protecting, then things can happen that will build up to really outlandish, outrageous kind of things that a child should not suffer. No human being should suffer. But they can and do. And a lot of times, as I said, a person left untreated, those ills, those mistreatments, that unfairness can be turned inward and eats a person up. So a lot of times that drugs and alcohol end up being what they turn to. I'll just give myself, for example, neither one of my parents smoked or drank or did anything, but as a peer, I started to see things in the community where people did drink and party and do things that we didn't do coming up. And that looked like a good thing to me because I had some of my own dramas and traumas in my earlier life.
And we'll get to like how to overcome it. But I am curious because I know I've read where there are, I guess, quote unquote, dysfunctional roles that each family member plays in an attempt to sustain a sense of normalcy. One of those roles is the enabler. There's a scapegoat. There's a lost child, hero, the mascot, and then the abuser. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate on some of those roles and the role they play in the family dynamic?
The one that actually, there are 6 of them, as you just said, and when it comes down to it, a lot of times in this conversation, they'll leave out the addicts themselves. But the enabler is the person who encourages or enables a negative or self-destructive behavior in another being. An enabler is to an addict does them more harm than good. So it might be the mother, it might be an aunt, it might be an older brother or sister that a lot of times will try to get them out of the problem. And the way that they are trying to get them out of is buying them out of it, giving them money, making excuses for them, letting them stay out from school. Any more younger, the people younger and younger are being affected by even addiction and drug use. So I remember hearing families talk to us about earlier childhood and how their parents might have given them alcohol because they wouldn't sleep, so they made sure they give them alcohol to sleep. So a lot of times it was not even the person who was trying to do it, who was abusing, but somebody was giving it to them. So and so the enabler again is the person who makes makes the person able to do the things that they do and get away with it. A lot of times that can end up going to the law and different things. If a person is driving under the influence and the parent has money to keep getting them out of jail and try to get good lawyers to get them off, and never telling the story or the truth about what's going on. Sometimes you'll hear years later about how bad a person's record actually is because their family has kept that a secret until somebody either hurts themselves or kills themselves or kills somebody else, because money can't always get you out of trouble. So the hero is a family role. Is a family role that is also known as a perfectionist or the overachiever. The hero is a family role that most likely to prevent any help or suggested solutions from anyone other than themselves. So the hero thinks that they're helping, but they're not usually very good at it, I'll say. And they don't want to listen to anybody else's suggestions or the things, because you could have an uncle or aunt or grandparents go, get that boy some help. That baby needs to do this, that, or the other. Or if you're letting, it might be a young adult or a grown person, like, hey, if they keep missing work and oversleeping because they've been partying too much the night before, those kind of things are red flags that present themselves because of the behavior that happens and the after effects. So the hero, again, will come in and try to swoop in, and they'll keep getting them jobs, and they'll keep speaking up for them, and they'll keep trying to help, but the help is really hurting, just like with the enabler. The scapegoat is the mascot of the family member who deflects tension and conflict with humor or distraction. And I read earlier that a lot of times a lot of comedians end up coming from that role, and that's the thing they do. They'll get you to think about something else instead of what you actually see. I made many jokes about our ex-president, and he would say, well, and people would get up afterwards and they deflect. But that's not what he said. That's not what he meant. And people would say the craziest things under the influence, but a lot of times being from that mindset, they'll say what they really mean. And it sounds horrible, but people will try to kind of get away from it. It's like, oh, that's not really what they meant. So the lost child is a family member who retreats from the family dysfunction due to feelings of being overwhelmed. They could spend a lot of time alone, pursue singular interests, and or struggle to establish or maintain relationships with others. So this can go a bunch of different ways for that one character, that one person in the family. Again, a lot of your poets and different things like that. I'm going to just say this about addicts, period, and that's alcohol is included. I actually belong to the Narcotics Anonymous program, and we say a drug is a drug is a drug, wet or dry. It doesn't make any difference. But that person has actually, and I say this to my sponsees quite a bit, other recovering addicts who are asking me for help or talking, who want to talk. Where a lot of times we're very, very bright people, and we could sell a car and do all kind of different things. We've taken that and it's been distorted, and we kind of hustle and do things to get away with money and to cheat and to lie and to steal, because those are the avenues that you end up going down if you can't get what you want. If a person is wealthy, you've heard a lot about stars who have turned around and overdosed and died. Because more than likely, if you have a lot of resources, you have lots of ways to get what you want. A person with less resources will turn around and try to find ways and means to get more. And if that's stealing, if that's whatever it is, that's the way that they go about it. And that lost child will be that person who will try to get away from everything and not put blinders on. That's not my daddy. That's not my mama. That's not my sister or brother. But they'll struggle to maintain just relationships with others, period, because of all the dysfunction that they see. They escape through that.
Thank you so much for breaking that down. So is it important for family members to know which role they're playing And if so, what do they need to do or understand on how to overcome it or not play that role?
I'll say this. There are actually several different types of help. You got a lot of books, different kind of books you can read. Al-Anon is made for alcoholics, family members who are not actually the addict themselves, the alcoholic themselves. Nor-Anon is also the same thing for a person who's in Narcotics Anonymous. But there are several types of help with the internet today. We got thousands and thousands of different ways to find books and different material, even people to talk to. I love the fact that during the pandemic, when you're resourceful enough, you can get what you need. You know, we tell people as addicts, so like, if you could do it out in the streets, you could do way better here. You know,
right.
If you to the programs. And I mean, as I said, being resourceful, we got online and we had Zoom meetings, and we had meetings every night, all day long. We had Zoom meetings when everything was shut down, because a lot of people who were not really didn't have a real strong following with their sobriety or their clean time and the recovery process went back out and started drinking, using again, getting high. And a lot of people died because of the opioid epidemic, the fentanyl's out there now. I thank God that I got clean when I did, because now you don't know what you're getting. And people are dying and suffering because of that. Of course, you were talking about earlier how the community is affected. So, yeah, the immediate family is affected, but so is the extended family and the neighborhood, because there goes, you know, I need to steal something to get what I need, or I need to stick somebody up to get what I need. And that person might not have anything to do with the streets, you know, because a lot of times the villain will go after the victim, who's going to be the least resistance. It's just sad all the way around. And actually, I got very disillusioned when I first started working with addicts, because we can't make them do anything. A person is going to have to want to get the help, and then they're going to have to practice living better. So that's what the 12 steps do, show us how to live better, because it really brings us back to God. Or if you've never introduced to it, it will bring you to that God consciousness.
Saying that leads me to another question I had about overcoming. How does an addict overcome the drug abuse, and what do they need to do? But you just said they really have to want to overcome it and not use the drug.
Because of active addiction, I mean, some people never will tell the whole truth about everything that happened to them. But when you actually the steps, and as you go over the steps again and again, and they go 1 through 12, but it's a cleansing process. And a lot of times you don't really understand everything that you've gone through, but you do your God to increase. So the part that a lot of people miss is that you don't just go through 1 through 12 and graduate. I continue to go through this stuff, because I continue to learn how to treat myself better. But we teach you how to love yourself. And in the process, you get to love others. In the we call it the rooms, or in the circles of the 12-step program, we run into all kind of people, just like in the world. So we try to bring people to the church. We bring people to God. They come from all kind of backgrounds. Sometimes they've been in those different categories that we talked about, and we know because the devil's busy. So there's a lot that happens out there. And when you try to bring people to salvation, when you try to bring them to recovery, sometimes there will be a pushback, because the devil is always trying to pull you back. So the things that we try to impress upon the addict, the alcoholic, is to practice these principles in all of our affairs, is what we call it. And when I get spiritual principles, we're actually all of the 12 steps are based off the principles directly from the Bible. But when spiritual principles are used, and you learn honesty, how to tell the truth no matter what happens. But when we learn how to put compassion with that, so I don't have to be brutally honest and tell the whole story about everything and, just throw all the dirt out there because I don't want to do harm while I'm trying to make my amends. So this could probably go on for a long time to shut me up if you need to.
No, go right ahead. We got till 8:00.
Okay. But yeah, so as I said, when it comes down to it, the person can actually feel bad about what they've done, but that can be in the fourth step. We talk about we don't want you to go through a binge of emotional strife because there's a lot of pain and guilt and shame that comes up with some of the things that happened in the past, whether that be the recent past or years ago. Sometimes people have been hurt so bad they've tried to bury those things. That's what part of what the drugs was trying to enable or escape, to try to escape from that thing, whatever it was, and the feelings. So when it overwhelms you, you can't sleep at night, and you get up and you want to do something, and that leads you to worse. Because, like I said, the drugs or alcohol or drugs can be an escape, but of course then they turn on you, and people die from the effects of the after effects of alcohol and drugs, and it's a downhill spiral.
What are there signs or behavioral warning signs that families can look for if they suspect that their loved one is using drugs?
I'll say this: addiction is a learned behavior. Of course, you get quote unquote better at it as you get worse. And when it gets right down to it, there are lots of signs, and a lot of times people, all of those the enabler and the hero and the scapegoat, all of those people who are in the family, and that family might be blood, it might be church, it might be neighborhood, but those people call themselves trying to help, but most of the time, if I don't know how to help properly, all I'm doing is kind of pushing the problem to the side, so to speak. I remember my dad working for Chrysler for years, and he said a lot of the alcoholics, they would send them to a program, and they come back a dry drunk. They'd be mean and surly, but they hadn't had any real change, and that would only last us because that's like your own will. Without God's help, I can change. With God's help, I can change. Without God's help, when I'm just trying to do it on my own, then I'm gonna run back into myself and my feelings and the reasons why I was upset in the first place, and I didn't want to believe or remember the stuff that happened, whether it was sexual abuse or beatings or whatever else. And as I get to that point, I come back, and as I said, I run back into myself, and then I don't know what to do again. So most of the time in the streets, in the bars, in the clubs, whatever else, where people go, I told you I equated myself to the prodigal son. When you leave the protection of the things that you know, if they were good, hopefully you'll keep in mind, like the Bible says, teach a child the way he should go. When he's old, he won't depart from it. But that does not mean he won't learn and do wrong, because we're human. We're human beings. And a lot of times, like I said, the shame and guilt are all caught up in it because I feel bad that I did it, that I got caught with it, that it happened. But me getting away from it does not happen because that stays in my head. I don't forget it. And until I learn how to use those spiritual principles, the support of the 12-step programs, sponsorship, all those kind of things, those are ways to get out of. But you don't ever get away from it, because I've had friends with 20 and 30 years clean who started using again because, like I said, when all of the things that were cut off because of the pandemic and meetings you couldn't meet in person, they would start to go back to their bad habits, but like a swag return to what they threw up, because that's what mankind will do without God's help. So I hear people tell me all the time, well, I go to church only. I said, well, let me tell you something. If you go to church and you tell those people at church what you tell those people in the meetings, they might kind of grab their purse and clutch the pearls and walk away from you. People in the meetings understand. So that's why I tell people, I said, well, it's fine. And it's fine to do both. I do both.
Right.
And years later, people ask me, you still go to those meetings or classes, as they call them? I said, I sure do. I need to keep learning. I need to keep learning about that I might do, the things that I need to learn, because there's always a deeper understanding if I stay in this. I can be aware of the knowledge of God, of the things that he wants me to do, and do it a little bit better if I continue to pay attention.
Right. Amen. What are some important factors? And I apologize if you've mentioned this before. I don't want to be redundant in my questions, but some important factors in the drug abuser's recovery efforts. So when does the family heal from the abuser's actions, or do they ever heal? Is it, after the abuser recovers, or is it possible for them to recover before?
Well, recovery is still an ongoing process. It's a process of awareness, surrender, and growth. We don't ever stop growing. We don't ever stop surrendering. We don't ever stop being aware. Somewhere down the line, when a person actually, when we do it, the 10th step talks about being an amends, doing amends. Mm-hmm. And a man doesn't keep saying, I'm sorry. What a man does, I do my best to correct what I wronged, what I broke, and not do it again. I've heard people say, well, I got to the 10th step and I told everybody I was sorry. And some people just came back and said, you so are sorry. Because the matter is, it's not saying I'm sorry. It's amending. To amend means it's like sewing. I put it back together. I fix it to the best of my ability. Now, you said you made a great statement when you said, how about the family? Well, when you think about it, when you have children who are the addict's children, they have a whole different vantage and viewpoint than the sister or brother or uncle or aunt or grandparent. The child saw that and it was regular, and they were really hurt. I had a good friend of mine who had 2 sons, and he played professional basketball. And he messed up with drugs and messed his whole career up. And his son's wife took them away from him. So he didn't see them for years. And the boys wanted to see their father, but she was like, no, you messed up too much, and I don't want to keep exposing them to that. Well, he's done wonderfully, and he does a whole lot to help, because we call it service work, with giving back. And he does a whole lot to help other addicts and people all the time, and has done very well for himself. And as his sons grew up and got older and grown, they came over, they were in his life. Well, right after one of the sons got in his life, the young man was murdered. And we don't know. We do not know how those things will turn out. I can't sit here, because it's like trying to take the gospel to somebody. All we can do is study and take them to church and invite them to church and show them our light. But God gives the increase. It's not our job to take their person's heart and mold it and say, hey, this is what God does for you. This is what you need to do to become a Christian. And all we can do is our part, because the other person's part has their part too. So when they forgive, if they forgive, it's totally up to them. And I tell my sponsees all the time, I said, that's not your job. You do your part.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think about families because, and you may have heard of this particular group of women or organization. They're called Recovering Two. And what they are, they support families who are dealing with a loved one that is addicted and using drugs. and they shared their story. They were actually on the show, I think, last year, and they shared that, you know, their spouses, they found out that their spouses were abusing drugs, but they didn't know it right off. And that kind of goes back to my previous question when I asked about the warning signs. And you made the comment, it's learned behavior. It gets better as it gets worse. So in my mind, I'm thinking they get better at hiding it.
Yes.
As they're getting worse, and that's why these women in this organization, they weren't able to tell right away.
Yeah.
Because their spouses were good at hiding it.
I also say this, as I said, an enabler will also let things go. Like I said, red flags, the light is turning red in front of you, you keep going.
Yeah.
There's a sign that something's not quite right. And a lot of times in relationships, in families, people just kind of overlook it. That he'll come back around. He'll come around. But you know how many times in those certain circumstances, and I've seen people lose families, houses, businesses, all kind of stuff. Because I'm going to tell you this. Addiction is more than just drugs. Addiction is actually an addict can be a gambler.
That's
and
true.
You lose the house, lose the business, you lose the car, all your rings and jewelry are gone. Then they come to the house and start taking your jewelry because the mind tells them, I need more. They're on a chase for money, but it's not much different than the chase for drugs.
Right.
And it's just as detrimental because it'll get you killed either way.
Right. Right.
So people talking about, I hear a lot of different things. Like I said, I go to the jails and the recovery houses and speak all the time. And I hear people talking about their journey. And I'm like, well, somewhere down the line, you saw stuff happening because you can't just keep running over me and not recognize what you're running over me.
That's true.
Because when it comes down to it, it's like, you know, I've heard the stories of the kids, you know, a person who was trying to get straight, and all of a sudden around Christmas time, they bought the kids toys and clothes and everything, and the kids wake up Christmas morning and everything's gone from out under the tree because addict man took over. Because it's like a monster. Yeah. It's a monster. If it tells you not to eat, if it tells you to steal from your kids, if it tells you not to go to work, there's nothing constructive about that. Right. It tells you to feed it instead of yourself. Take the grocery money and go get high. I think the addicts over the years decide they're going to start selling drugs. A monkey can't sell bananas. Right. You know, right. And like at any cost. A lot of people don't think, and I talk to a lot of the young people. I said they call themselves wanting to deal with a baller, a dealer. I was like, that'll get you killed. I had it happen in my family where one of the young girls was going to a drug dealer, and they killed her. They killed her. They killed him. And the only reason they got caught because they didn't kill the kids, and come to find out it was somebody in the family. You never know where this stuff starts.
Right. Ooh, okay. Are there misconceptions or myths about drug abuse? And I know one thing that you just mentioned about, say, for example, like dealing drugs and maybe trying to be a baller or something like that. But are there, myths or misconceptions about abusing drugs or substances?
Yeah, you can't tell all the time. In stage, when a person is gone to about to die, when the person is their physical body has gone all the way to the end, where they lose weight They can't keep anything together because a lot of times you start out and the person might keep a job for a while. They might keep a job for years if they're doing certain types of drugs because everything is not immediate. But when they start doing those opioids and that heroin, different things like that, you can tell when they're nodding, when they're supposed to be up driving or walking or working or whatever else, and they'll just come in hot because the drug will take over. A lot of people don't know that opioids actually mess with the respiratory system as well. And what it is that their breathing will get so shallow that it'll just stop. Because that's what opioids do to a person. They take over their respiratory system, and their breathing will get so shallow that they'll stop breathing. So that's what some of the different Narcan and different things will do is help to shock yourself back to, if they can, because some of the other stuff, the fentanyl is not even an opioid. That's what the people are dying from left and right, and they're putting that on all kind of different drugs. But I'm sorry, I probably got away from your question.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I mean, it either way, it's information that needs to be shared. But no, I had asked, and I don't know. It was just I think a question that I thought about. But if there are any common misconceptions about drug abuse.
You know, one of the chapters in Narcotics Anonymous basic text talks about, you know, we came into this thing wanting help, seeking help. Maybe a judge told us we needed to go help a boss, a spouse, children might have, you know, if you listen to them, like, you know what, you've been treating us wrong, you've been doing this all about the wrong way, and you're really in need of some help. And somewhere down the line, like I said, it ends up being those signs that show up. Like I said, if I can't pay my mortgage because I've taken my check and did other things with it, and I don't care whether I'm gambling or smoking it up or shooting it up or drinking it up, it doesn't make any difference. Right. An addict wants to keep feeling better. It wants to keep getting that high. And the answer is never there because you keep chasing the genie. You know, there's no real answer to the bottomless pit, so to speak. There's no real bottom. You're going to just keep following. And the Bible talks about don't linger allow his strong drink because you're going to wake up with bruises and you don't remember how you got. And that bounced off my head when I was like, oh my God. And I lived that. I remember waking up and not knowing what happened because you don't wake up, you come to because you've been out of it.
So if someone, if they want to maybe get help either for someone who is abusing drugs or if someone who is abusing drugs wants to get help, or even family members, is there a phone number that they can call or a website that you can suggest that they can look at?
Here in the Indianapolis area, and most areas actually, because Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous are actually worldwide programs. And a lot of times if you go online and look up NA meetings near me, you can get meetings. Person can actually get direction from there. Also, you can Google help for drug addiction. And it always will need to start with the person actually wanting to help because mama can want it, wife and husband can want it. You know, everybody else can want it except for the addict. And, of course, they do because there's also a point in our basic text that talks about sometimes, you know, everybody else is like, I'm through with you. I'm tired of this stuff affecting my life so much that I can't even get sleep. I don't feel safe, all those kind of things. So, but here in the Indianapolis, the Marion County area, we have Marion County Health Department has a program called Substance Use Outreach Center, and they will pay for your they will pay for your rehab. So if you have good insurance, you can also usually go through. I actually went through treatment the first time when I worked at St. Vincent's Hospital. I went through the stress center and went through their program. If you have insurance, that's a way to get through to some help. And it's going to take the individual again to keep going, to keep doing it, because I remember thinking that I was okay that first year and a half, and it didn't take much for me to start again. And the lies and the deceit and the things, oh, I got robbed, that's why I'm broke. Oh, God.
Yeah.
and I mean, that kind of stuff, I had to talk to my parents and people in my life about, what really was going on. And because you have to come up with excuses, because you can't tell the truth. They'll see what kind of monster you are.
Yeah. So, and I know we're getting close to time, but and I really appreciate all the information that you've shared tonight. But before we go, what advice or additional advice can you offer those that have family members that are abusing drugs?
The best thing that a person, a family member or somebody close, because a lot of times we work with people, all those kind of things too. But there's abuse that happens in the church. And all we got to do is be cognizant of why does this person constantly come to us? They need help with their rent. They need help with their bills. What are you doing about your own working? You need to pay attention, because we need to be good stewards of what we do have. And when that kind of thing is happening, when a family member is always asking me, and I talked to one of my cousins today. I've been trying to get her to go to meetings for years, and she called me and she was lit today. And all you can do is love them, but love them enough to love and take care of yourself. I will not put myself I don't have kids, but put people that I love in harm's way, try to help get you help. Because when you want help, like I said, you have to make the first steps towards it. God will give you the help you need, and we, like I said, paying attention, praying. We can pray till we're blue in the face, but when it comes down to it, if that person isn't ready to stop, they're not going to stop.
Right. And that's like in anything, we can want something for someone all day long, and like you mentioned, a few times about, coming to the Lord, or just, trying to do the right thing. And we can want something for someone all day long, but unless they really want to do it, they're not going to.
Exactly.
Well, I definitely, like I said, I appreciate all the information that you've given us tonight. I mean, it's really important, and my prayer is that someone is in our listening audience, that this will help them, whether they are the abuser, the addict, or whether it's a family member of an addict. If any of our listeners has been impacted by substance abuse in one way or another, and you want help, as George mentioned, there's Narcotics Anonymous, and that is state or countrywide, worldwide. You can also go on the internet and Google NA meetings near me. He also mentioned about the Marion County Health Department. And if you have insurance, say like somewhere like St. Vincent's, and you can go through their stress treatment. St. Vincent's is here in Indianapolis, Indiana. But there is all kinds of help out there for those who are addicted to drugs, or and those family members. You just have to want to stop and overcome it, and be willing to look for the information that is going to help you. I also want to thank Brother Stevie. Again, I am so grateful for this platform, because it's an opportunity to share information such as this. And again, hopefully it will be of help to someone who is listening. If you have any questions or comments for George, please contact me on Facebook Messenger, or send an email to butlersteve1009 yahoo.com, and we will definitely make sure that we get this information over to George, either your questions or your comments or any concerns that you have related to this topic. Thank you again, George, and to our audience. Everyone have a great evening, and I look forward to seeing you in April.
God bless you.
You too. Thank you.
Hey, this is Genesis Archer, and you're listening to A Talk with My Sister on What a Word from the Lord radio show.
You're listening to What a Word from the Lord radio show.
Will you forgive me for I've done wrong? And will you accept me, Jesus, as I kneel at your throne, dear Lord? And all of my brothers, he will always criticize and accuse. Yes, he will. But I know that my Jesus, he will make me brand new. Your blood is strong enough to clean me up or restore me again. Please wash me free from the stain of all of my sins. And Lord, please use me, 'cause I'm ready at thy bidding, Lord. Lord, here am I, send me. Cause you're a God of a second chance. I see them crowd, and they each have a stone, dear Lord. But you knelt beside me, Jesus, and my fears are all gone. Praise God. 'Cause you give me peace that surpasses the mind. And I know that in Jesus' sweet compassion, I'm gonna find Lord, your blood is strong enough to clean me up on the door again. Please wash me free from the stain of all of my sins. Dear Lord, and Lord, please use me, 'cause I'm ready at thy bidding. Lord, here am I, send me. 'Cause you're a God of a second chance. I'm thankful for a God of a second chance. I'm grateful God gave me a second chance. 'Cause you're a God of a second chance. You lifted me higher. Second chance. I ask you, Lord, to use me. 'Cause Lord, I'm ready. I'm sitting for you. Lord, here am I, send me. Use me. 'Cause you're a God. Lord, but I'm thankful for the God. Second chance. See, I messed up, but you cleaned me up, gave me. Well, you're the God. Second chance. No more shame, no more doubt, no more guilt, Lord. So I ask you, Lord, to use me when no one else will. You will, Father. Use me just like I've never seen before. You see, sometimes we get so self-righteous. We forget that the book says, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And that same book says that there's none righteous, no, not one. See, if you're honest with yourself, you'll admit that we've all needed a second chance. And it was only because of His grace and His mercy that we're here today. Because the Lord is long-suffering, not willing that anybody should perish, but that all should come to repentance. And see, repentance, that's the key. Because in repentance, that's where you learn to turn around. And God gives you a second chance. You turn from selfishness, turn toward godliness. You turn from anger, turn toward joy. You turn from hatred, and turn toward love. My brother, my sister, God will give you a second chance. If you just turn around, till you hear well, but you got to turn around for your second chance. You got to put your hand in God's hand. Turn around for your second chance. Just ask the Lord to use me. Say, Lord, I'm ready and use me. Well, hear Him urging me. Use me. 'Cause you're a God. Well, I'm thankful for my second chance.
You're listening to What a Word from the Lord radio show.